listen to my review. This may be my last chance to get good at making reviews. Hi there! Now, before we begin, I have to say that I'm a bit blinded by my love and nostalgia of this game. So keep that in mind while I'm reviewing it. Now, just to say quickly, if it was possible to have sex with the game, then this game would have taken my virginity a long time ago on the PS2. So, Final Fantasy X. Let's begin! The story of this game is rather easy to understand, seeing how everyone is talking about stories in the game.
This is no story.
Anyway, the story follows our protagonist, who you can call whatever you feel like, but since his default name is Tidus, I will use that. Tidus, yeah, whatever. Tidus is a 17-year-old blitzball player who is a captain of the Sanukin Apes. He lives a celebrity life, just like his disappeared father before him, Jacked.
I was in a coffee shop running away from home when I heard the news. Our hero, Jacked, gone, vanished into thin air.
Suddenly, while playing his totally realistic sport, seriously, if people can dress like that, then I guess that everything is possible, a huge monster arrives and sends our main character to another world called Squere. There he will meet several interesting characters and join them on a quest to defeat a monster that destroys everything in its way, while also being the same being that sent Tidus to their world, Sin.
We called it Sin.
Sin?
To make a good story that lasts around 30 to 40 hours, there are several things that are needed, and this game doesn't disappoint. The story is emotional, with each character of the group going through their own struggle, which helps the development of our main character, who starts out as a young, brash kid, but I'll talk about the characters later. The world shows us several races like the Ronso, and a major religion where they pray to this being called Yevon. And with these aspects, the game shows us the struggle of racism and religion, showing some holy men abusing their powers, and a good people called the Albeds who are being looked down upon.
We're Albed, can't you tell? Wait, you're not an Albed hater, are you?
I don't even know what an Albed is.
There are so many real-world problems this game throws at you. In such a beautiful world and with high definition remastered, it looks even more beautiful than it would look all those years ago on the PS2. The story also has some twists that will surprise you, if you're not already spoiled since the game is originally on the PS2. Plus the ending, tears. The best way to describe the world of Squere is that from the outside the world looks colorful and peaceful, but from the inside, black and white and dark and tragic. What also helps is that our main character Tidus is always acting from the outside, extremely happy and supportive and all of that, but he is one of the darkest characters in the game. Tidus, as I've already said, is a 17-year-old captain of the blitzball team, the Sanukin Apes.
You know amateur. Who you play for?
The Xanarkanabes.
What team you say again?
He lived in the shadow of his father throughout his entire life, making him angry just when people mention the great Jacked. At the beginning of the game, he acts childish, brash, and rather high and mighty, but as the story goes on, Tidus soon realizes that there are much more to the world than fame and personal comfort, like the lives of many and the safety of the world. A lot of people seem to have a problem with Tidus as a character, but I don't really understand why. He's probably one of the most relatable characters in the Final Fantasy universe. He's a normal 17-year-old who had an alcoholic father who is a perfectionist.
Hey, stop dreaming! You with a woman? You can't even catch a ball! Oh, what's the matter? Gonna cry again? Cry, cry. That's the only thing you're good for.
I hate you!
And if people say that Tidus seems to complain a lot about shortage of food and stuff like that, remember, he is suddenly transported to a different world. From a life of comfort, everyone in his boots would complain. Trust me, I would. There are a lot of characters I could and want to talk about, but that would take a lot of time, so I'll talk a bit about the second most important character in the story, and that is Yuna.
I've done it. I have become a summoner.
In our little group of friends, Yuna is the most important one, as everyone else acts as her guardian. She is a summoner, which pretty much means that she has devoted her life to defeat sin, and therefore she must go on a pilgrimage to gain aeons, also known as summons, to get the final aeon to defeat sin.
Have you ever played an RPG where you feel close to the characters, the group per se, your friends, that you feel like you can understand their pain, that you want to see them get through all of their struggles? This game does exactly that with its group and characters. For example, the bromance between Wakka and Tidus, the father-like figure Auron, always telling stories and always lecturing Tidus about what's right and what's the good thing between duty and, you know, following the heart and everything. And also a very close love relationship between Yuda and Tidus that you want to see them pull through. This game does that perfectly. And in an RPG where you are supposed to be with this guy for about 60 hours, maybe, you know, 40, 50, 60, whatever, it is gold, and this game brings it home.
What also is important in an RPG is the gameplay, and yes, it is a Final Fantasy game, so there are random encounters.
Okay, whew.
But what I really like about FFX's fighting system are the types of enemies and which character of the group that can finish each type the fastest. Tidus can kill the wolves with most ease, Waka can kill flyers the best, and Lulu is the best when it comes to magical jelly. And if you try to use Tidus on one of those jellies, he will almost take no damage of the enemy.
Told you.
Simply because he's not suited for that type. Another thing I like about the combat system is how it's turn-based, and you can see the queue of turns. This creates not so much of a thinking on your feet, but more on a long-term strategies, which I prefer in any Final Fantasy game. The overworld is huge, so you'll meet several different types of enemies, but they are pretty easy to understand. As I said, the wolf is suited for Tidus, and you will find different colored wolves in each area around the world. And when you kill an enemy, you obviously get XP, but you do not gain level. In this game there is a different type of leveling system called the Squere grid, and I will say this now. The Squere grid may seem a bit difficult at first, but it is actually extremely easy to understand, and it gives you a lot of options on how you want to level up your character. It will take too much time to explain it here, but there is a good tutorial in the game, so don't skip it.
Another thing I really love in any kind of game pretty much is when our main character, or any other kind of people that you can control, have super attacks. And in this game you have exactly that, and they're called overdrives.
An overdrive is pretty much, as I said, a super attack that either takes a lot of damage to one enemy or a bit less damage to several enemies. When using these attacks, a short minigame will show up designed for each character. Auron will have a lot of buttons you will have to press in order in a small amount of time. With Tidus you'll have to time your button pressing, and with Waka there's a slot machine. The more you use one overdrive, the closer you are to gain a new overdrive attack, so I highly recommend using those attacks as much as possible, even though you may think that you should save it for a boss, but trust me, you want the other overdrives. You can also customize weapons, making it have several special abilities, like going through defenses or poisoning your enemies. You can also have summoner battles, with each summoner summoning different types of Aeons, so that creates also a different kind of boss battle.
The gameplay in this game is fantastic, but it's not perfect. There are several things in this game, mechanics and stuff like that kind of makes me groan. For example, to make every single of your character, the entire group, the same level, so to speak, is to make sure that all of them are doing an action in any kind of battle in the game. For example, you have 3 characters out at a time, but to make sure that all of your 8 characters, I think they are, all of the 8 characters get the same amount of XP, you have to bring all of them out to do one action, for example block. And right after that, then I send out the characters to easily kill my enemies, for example Tidus with wolf, as I always say, or Auron with the huge ass turtles. And as I said before, when you have an overdrive, when you get new overdrives by doing the same overdrives that you already have over and over in every battle, it really gets annoying when you've done an overdrive against a bomb and then you suddenly get to a boss where you would really like to have that overdrive. And as I said, the Squere grid is really confusing if you haven't looked through the tutorial, which the game gives you in really great detail. Remember that, look through the tutorial or else you will fail in the game. Keep that in mind. Also, there is a side activity in this game that the game pushes you to do once, just once luckily, and that's a blitzball.
Yes, you can play this sport in the game, and I hate it. Though the game only makes you play one game, and after that you'll never have to play it again if you don't like it. But the one time you have to play it, then you're playing the finals, and it is also Waka's last match. So every time I lost, I restarted the game. For Captain Waka!
For Captain Waka.
And the worst thing of the game, that I don't think anyone likes, is the Squere dungeon. Every now and again Yuna needs to gain new Aeons, and therefore she needs to go to a certain temple. In these temples you have to go through a small puzzle-like dungeon, and it's a huge pain in the bee. But I highly recommend that you finish all of those dungeons 100%, as you will get some neat items and a secret asset that I will absolutely not spoil, but trust me when I say this, it is totally worth it.
After the remastered edition came out, then a lot of the Final Fantasy X fans we're a bit split in between when it comes to the soundtrack, because they also remastered the soundtrack, every single track. And let me just say this about both the original and the remastered soundtrack. It's fantastic.
Battle music is gold. Boss music, gold. Dramatic music is depressing, which is good. And everything is beautiful. But there are some tracks where my preference lies with the original port. And that's why I wonder, why can't we change the music to the PS2 version? I really don't understand why there is no option for that, but still, the music is fantastic.
And that's the best word to use to describe this game. Fantastic! Now, remember, in this review I focused on the 10th Final Fantasy game, not the X2 or the 10.2, because I don't really like that game. Anyway, Final Fantasy X, high definition, or the old, whatever, gets a really strong and heartfelt and critical 9 out of 10. It would have gotten a 10 out of 10 if it didn't have those sphere dungeons, or at least have some other kind of activity around that, or having all of your characters gaining XP from each fight, or anything else. I mean, doing the same thing over and over is never a good thing, at least if it's not funny. And maybe even giving you another way to earn new overdrives. As I've said, doing the same thing over and over, when you kind of want to use those overdrives against bosses, or that if you're not the biggest grinder and you're more of the strategic kind, then obviously kind of annoying. A 9 out of 10 is a must-buy if you like RPGs or adventure games or whatever, or grand adventures. So keep that in mind. Now let's end this review on a good, heartfelt, laughing note.